powers must act together because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu.
Somewhere Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems.
चुन चुन करके हिसाब लेना ये मेरी फितरत है.
Why should it be a problem if I'm smart enough to have multiple options? You should be admiring me.
भारत झुकने वाला भी नहीं.
The rise of India will be determined by India. It will be determined by our strength, not by the mistakes of others.
The old order is not coming back. We shouldn't mourn it. Nostalgia is not a strategy.
Guys, welcome to my channel. Now in 2026, the world is watching a dangerous war that's going on. Israel, the United States, the Iran, and they are all at war. And it was coming. We all saw it coming, right? But the battlefield is not only in the Middle East. The fallout of this war is sending a shockwave throughout the globe. Now, the real geopolitical, I would say real geopolitical shockwave is hitting BRICS. Why is that? We all know. Because for the first time, right, the BRICS bloc includes countries directly involved or aligned with opposing sides of a major war. Iran is part of the expanded BRICS network, while India maintains deep strategic ties with Israel, United States, and the Gulf states. And the irony is this, that Iran got bombed because somehow somebody, that is US and Israel, they perceived Iran to be a Islamic threat. And the Gulf countries just released another statement and they said that Iran is not even an Islamic country. And here's the twist in this whole entire thing, that India is the BRICS chair in 2026. So India is in a bit of a V spot here. India has a dilemma, the BRICS dilemma, because India is responsible, right? India is responsible for holding the bloc together precisely when it risks breaking apart. So the big question is this: can India keep BRICS united during a war that divides its own members? Or will this conflict expose the limits of entire global South coalition? Now, some of you will be like, yes, okay, all right, nobody's talking about BRICS. Why this matters? See, this matters because it's not just about diplomacy, okay? This crisis touches basically three global systems simultaneously. Number one is energy flow through the Gulf, right? We all know this, Strait of Hormuz. Then maritime trade through the Strait of Hormuz. Then credibility of BRICS as an alternative global platform. Now, here's the thing. For those who have watched my older videos, those who have followed me on Spotify and all that, so you know that BRICS has always tried to establish itself as a commodity hub, more like an energy bloc that was working towards controlling the majority share of global oil and energy, right? Right now, the situation is that BRICS is already struggling to issue a unified response to the war because its members are divided. If India fails to manage this crisis, BRICS could fracture at the very moment it is trying to reshape the global order. That is the oil and energy global order. In fact, if you look into the combined resources, the natural resources, as far as rare earths are concerned, BRICS is at the top too in the rare earths as well. So if BRICS falls apart, then lots and lots of things will fall apart along with it, right? So that's where the India's dilemma is. That's where India needs to deliver. Now, why I'm saying this? See, last year, okay, last year in 2025, when another BRICS crisis happened, and Brazil was the chair. Then Brazil immediately organized an emergency BRICS meeting, right? And that emergency BRICS meeting may not have been any good or whatnot, right? But it was at least symbolic. They did something. But so far, India has not done anything. That, hey, let's get all the BRICS members together. Let's organize a meeting between all the BRICS members. Because Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iran, then Russia, China, India, all that, right? And then talk this out. Hey, what's going on? How do we sort this out, right? But none of that has happened. So what is going on? So let's talk about all that, India's BRICS dilemma, and how India is going to handle this thing, or how India is supposed to handle it. And is this gonna break the BRICS? And what is the future of the BRICS going forward anyways? Let's talk about all that and let's get going, guys. All right, please do like and subscribe, as your liking and subscribing helps me with the algorithm and the channel and keeps me motivated to keep doing what I do. All right, so let's get going. So first of all, let's look at this. This is India's response. In a meeting, they said that several members of BRICS involved in the West Asia conflict, difficult to bridge gaps between positions. India continues to be engaged with all the stakeholders. Then again, India continues to engage with BRICS partners on a common position on US-Iran war. Let me actually play this real quick, okay? So that we all know what is going on. This is my account, Emerging Order. You can actually go and follow me there too. All right. So I'm just going to play the shorter version. Okay. So let's go.
Look, BRICS, we hold the presidency. BRICS works on the basis of consensus. As you know, in this particular ongoing conflict, there are several members of the BRICS who are involved in it. And for that reason, it has been difficult to bridge the gap between the positions that countries have taken. But we continue to be engaged with all the stakeholders.
So there is that. So what India is saying is that lots of members are involved. India holds the presidency. So of course it is India's job to do something about it if they can. Not that India is obligated to, but if BRICS falls apart under India's presidency, then yeah, then it's a very, I would say, shameful moment for India, right? So that's where the situation is. Okay, now let's move forward. Okay, and what he's saying is that BRICS is more of about the consensus, which is true, that all the decisions that are made, they are made at least as far as full members are concerned here. Okay, so you have to understand that there are two bodies. Okay, first of all, you have on one side you have Iran, on the other side you have UAE, Saudi Arabia. All three of them are BRICS full members. Now, so some of you may be like, okay, so why are we saying that Iran and UAE and all these countries are opposed to each other? Well, they are opposed to each other. UAE may not have said much, but actually there are some serious intel or informations that the Saudi Arabia actually instigated this whole thing behind the scenes. They could have actually stopped it. They could have actually pressured the United States to not do such a thing. But they lack the spine, or whatever you want to call it. And they have their own compulsions, all right? I'm not going to be judgmental here. But they have their own compulsions. They have their own thing. So they tried it, but turns out that Saudi Arabia was telling United States that that go and bomb Iran, while they were calling Iran and saying that, hey, we are not going to be party to this whole thing. Two statements in two different places. So when they were playing double game, then this whole thing got messed up. All right. Anyways, now let's move forward with this whole thing. Okay. So what exactly is the situation here? India has a very I would say very tricky situation. All right, the tricky situation is that something that I'm calling it actually a strategic triangle trap. Okay, India is caught in a geopolitical triangle. All right, so on one side, if you look at it, on one side there is Israel and United States. And Israel is a major defense and technology partner. United States is a strategic partner for India too. Now, on the other side, there is Iran. Iran is critical. Iran used to provide India energy and all that till 2019. But after that, India stopped purchasing all that from Iran. And then critical for energy, regional access and connectivity, like India has invested almost $500 million in Chabahar port in Iran. That is a counter for China's CPEC and Gwadar port in Pakistan, as well as it is India's entry point to the Central Asia. Okay, so what's exactly the situation is here? Now let's look at each party, what they're saying. Okay, now for example, Iran, full BRICS member since January 2024. India voted yes on it. $500 million Chabahar port, that is India's Central Asia corridor strategy. Then INSTC is there. So for India, INSTC matters because INSTC basically connects India all the way to Russia, and this is how India actually counters, or this is India and Russia's counter strategy for sanctions. Now, then comes your India abstain on every United Nations Iran sanctions resolution. Okay, and it is when India doesn't want to make a call. Okay, abstaining actually is also considered no. Okay, so technically when India abstains, then India is saying no. All right, that's how United Nations voting works. Okay, then and Iran needs India at this point where India can use the United States back channels to de-escalate the situation. Now, India's inside trap is was the situation that Iran is asking India that invoke BRICS solidarity, condemn the strikes and all that. Israel is saying that do not legitimize Iran. They are saying that do not legitimize Iran and do not break Quad solidarity. That is, United States is saying do not give Iran cover and this and that. Gulf is asking that stabilize the strait, keep the war contained. Now, Israel and US, India's relationship with Israel and US is way deeper than India's relationship with Iran. Now, Israel and US relationship is actually taking a whole another turn, actually. Okay, and that another turn is something that like it turns into hexagon alliance, right? And when Prime Minister Modi actually he went to Israel's visit right before the whole thing, when everything hit the fan, right before this whole bombing started, the campaign. So over there, Prime Minister Modi, he himself said that, India stands firm and with solidarity and full conviction with Israel in this moment and in future. And India and Israel's trade right now is $10.7 billion. Okay. Now, and India and Israel are working on lots of other defense techniques and technologies, and they're planning to work on some AI stack as well. Lots of things are there. Now, for those who don't know, okay, I'm gonna just take a little bit of segue from this thing, and then I will tell you that why India and Israel's relationship is very important. at least for India. I'm just being a neutral guy, all right? Historically, when Jews were persecuted, even not just in modern era, in fact, in the older times too, India sheltered them. Okay, there are lots and lots of Jewish people living in India. Okay, in fact, the interesting part is this. I'll tell you this. In 1971 war, India's army chief, a chief of army staff, that was Sam Manekshaw. He was actually a Persian Zoroastrian. That's what his ethnicity was. And another guy, Lieutenant General Jacob, he was actually Jewish. And what's interesting thing is that these two were involved in breaking the Pakistan. So in India, these two who are today fighting somewhere else, people from these two communities, they were in the Indian army at the top positions. And they broke Pakistan. Isn't that interesting? That's why we say that this happens only in India. Okay. Now coming back to why Israel is important. The recent one was during the Kargil War. In the Kargil War, India needed lots of strike equipments, hardware, lots of laser guided bombs and all that. Because those terrains where you have to hit, actually, they are very difficult. Okay. And then there were lots of other constraints of the war too. All right. So I'm not going to go get involved into all that. So Americans denied all that help in 1990. It was 1999, I think. In 98, right? 98 was the Kargil War. Yeah. 99 was the 99 was the explosion. It's one or the other. You will have to check that. But anyways, so what happened is that at that time, Israel actually provided that help to India. And whenever India has needed those things, Israel has provided that help to India all the time without even thinking. So that's why Israel becomes very, very important for India and India's Gulf strategy and the West Asia and Africa strategy. Okay. Now, that's where the whole thing is. Now let's look into the fault lines. Okay, let's move forward and let's talk about the fault lines. All right. So I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. The fault lines. So what are the fault lines? BRICS today is like very, very different from the old 5-country club, like back in the day, how, BRICS used to be. But today, the expanded network also includes who? Iran, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Ethiopia, and all that, right? Now, if you look into this, you will find that Iran, Israel, Saudis, they don't get along with each other. Okay. Then Egypt and Ethiopia, they don't get along with each other either. Okay. Then there are quite a few camps as well. Now let's look at the slides. Camp A, that is anti-Western coalition. Okay. That calls itself anti-Western, is Russia, China, Iran, and Ethiopia. Okay, so what they want BRICS to be, basically formal condemnation of US-Israel operation on Iran, BRICS as counter to NATO, yuan-dominated payment system replacing dollar. Now, for those who think that yuan-dominated payment system replacing dollar is untrue, then I can assure you that just 2 days ago, Iran announced that, okay, countries that will actually make the payment in yuan will be allowed to pass the Strait of Hormuz. So it's not just some sort of random thing I'm putting here. Okay, these are all factual things. These are facts on the ground. Okay, so and this is one of the primary reasons why India has been reluctant, sort of reluctant actually, when it comes to BRICS expansion. Even though Russians wanted to expand BRICS really, really fast, for BRICS to be like 50-member bloc and all that. Why? Because that served Russian agenda, because Russians were sanctioned. So during the Kazan summit, they wanted that. But India actually said that no, let's integrate all the BRICS members together first. Let's see how we can work together first. We haven't tested that yet. We are just we keep adding members without even knowing the fault lines, and these are the fault lines that India was talking about. Okay, so now let's get back to it. So sanctions busting coordination for Russia and Iran. Then BRI integration, BRICS has belt and road political cover. Then comes the Camp B. The Camp B is basically your development institution that sees BRICS as a bloc that is good for trading, that is good for individual development, that is good for institutional reforms and counter institutions. All right, multilateral institutions, that type of stuff. That's the Camp B in BRICS. That includes India, Brazil, South Africa, Egypt, UAE, Saudi Arabia is there. Now, if you don't believe me, Saudi Arabia has game plan 2030 vision 2030. India has vision 2047. South Africa works under vision 2064. That is African Union vision. Then Brazil, I don't know about Brazil, but UAE also forms the same thing. All right. So, and what they want BRICS to be? They want BRICS to be NDB lending without IMF conditionality. Like I have talked about IMF, how IMF is more like it was a multilateral institution that came out of, not actually, that didn't come out of, IMF was actually introduced just to dollar recycle. Okay, for recycling of dollar, and which means that countries who don't have export, what do? You just give them dollar. Why? Because if you just give them the dollar as a loan or whatever, then at least you can ask them to do things for you, right? Just recently, what happened? Let me tell you another interesting thing. That just recently, I was reading this like 2 days ago. US was blackmailing Namibia. It was Namibia or Zambia, one or the other, that we are not going to give you HIV vaccines if you don't do this. That was new law in the coercion technique. That too for a country like Zambia or Namibia. These countries are not very powerful. They are struggling countries. They struggle. I mean, if global economy takes 1% slow, then their economy basically crashes immediately. These countries are like one recession away from economic catastrophe. But that was the new law. Okay, and that's where the BRICS come in, that hey, we will help you with the National Development Bank and all these things. That's what the Camp B that's in BRICS stands for. Okay, that is multi-currency de-dollarization, not a replacement currency. So for these countries, they are saying that yeah, we will trade with you and we want to trade in national currencies. There should be multi-currency basket and all that. But if somebody expects that yeah, we will replace dollar with yuan or renminbi, then what does it change? Nothing. We will run into just another problem. So that's the thing. Then another thing is South infrastructure, Chabahar, INSTC, digital trade. Those are India, South Africa, Brazil, UAE. These countries, their thing that's what they want to do. If you look into it, okay, there's another interesting thing I will tell you, that India and Egypt, and if I recall correctly, India and Egypt were there, then other countries are there too. India and Egypt were the first countries to start non-alignment movement as well. And that non-alignment, that actually further transformed into what we call today the multipolar world. Okay. Even though multipolarity has more to do with power, non-alignment meaning that we are not with any power, doesn't matter who that is. Okay, but but that's a different ballgame, right? Now they're saying that then this Camp B also talks about United Nations Security Council reform, United Nations reform, lots of things, right? So these are the BRICS fault lines. There are some certain differences. Yes, India and Russia get see eye to eye in lots of things. Maybe they work things out, but they don't be mistaken that that there are no divisions here. There are two schools of thoughts here. Okay. So, and those schools of thoughts, I think they switch back and forth according to the need of the time. All right. So, so what is India's diplomatic tightrope in this whole entire thing? But before that, before we get into India's tightrope, let's talk about BRICS test. What exactly happened? Okay. Uh, BRICS faced like almost two existential tests in 18 months. Okay. First one was the tariff war, the trade war. That was when all the BRICS countries were getting tariff, including India, Brazil, right? China was also under the same thing. And it was a pressure tactics. What happened? Brazil organized the emergency meeting. And in that emergency meeting, countries came, they made their statements and all, but nothing concrete came out of it. Why? Because yes, BRICS is a bloc, but there is no framework that determines but more so, like I would say, that framework for BRICS to respond in these type of situations. I would say that these are the unique situations for BRICS. So when this happened, then India made a statement very clearly over there in that too, that hey, there are BRICS countries who don't actually import stuff from BRICS countries too. There is a huge trade imbalance and all that, and other BRICS countries also made their statement. But at the end of it all, only China decided to do some favor to Brazil by importing Brazil's coffee and soybean and all that stuff. And then after that, China also increased imports from India as well. And now India has increased Chinese import as well. So now India-China trade had reached $150 billion from $130 billion. But trade imbalance is still there. So I would say that yes, they responded to an extent, yes, but was it very successful? That BRICS can proudly say that yeah, it was slap in the face? No, but it was a response nonetheless. The second test is now this whole US-Israel-Iran war. So in this whole thing, if you look into it, then you please, what is it? We talked about that, right? A full BRICS member, Iran is a full BRICS member. UAE is on the other side. Iran is attacking UAE. Then you have Saudi Arabia. Iran is attacking Saudi Arabia too. Bahrain is there. Bahrain is also a partner country of BRICS. And India's response is India refuses to join the anti-US Israel condemnation. India hasn't condemned it. But then at the same time, because of the diplomacy, while America's own partners rejected America's ask for help, and America kept on saying that, yeah, who wants to help us in Strait of Hormuz? This is not our problem. We shouldn't be doing this and this and that. Okay, you shouldn't be doing it. That's fine. Then why are you doing it in the first place? Why created this whole rule-based international order and all that if it's not your problem? So, meaning that when the testing time comes, then run away, cry for help, but otherwise it's rule-based order. Just listen to me. I'm the big boss. And that's what world did today, that, hey, not anymore. Let's test the big boss this time. So, you can see what is exactly going on in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, India, on the other hand, India went and did the diplomacy, and they said that all right. So India got its ship out and all that. Same thing happened with Chinese too. But nonetheless, this was a serious test for BRICS, right? So. So now why I am talking about all this? Why I'm talking about all this is because this creates a diplomatic tightrope for India. Why? Because India's challenge is unique. India has to maintain relationship with Israel. It has to maintain relationship with Iran. Okay, that maintain relationship with Saudi Arabia. Then protect millions of Indian workers in the Gulf. Then secure energy supplies, because 45 to 47% of natural uh, LPG comes from Qatar for India. LPG and LNG combined together, but LPG is the one that is cooking gas. And then at the same time, and the most important of all, is preserve BRICS unity, so that the countries that are fighting against each other, they don't leave BRICS. Like Argentina was supposed to join, but Argentina simply didn't join. Remember that? Otherwise, Argentina was like the top dog. Like, yeah, we are going to join. And turns out that Argentina just simply went and bent over and they showed their belly. So, what exactly is happening is that, in fact, India has already been actively speaking with both Gulf leaders and Iranian leadership during this whole entire conflict, okay, to maintain the maritime stability. And diplomacy is at full throttle right now. And then it's very risky as well. India's warship, there are 3 or 4 warships that are in the and at just at the mouth of the Straits of Hormuz right now. Not even a single ship other than Indian ships are there to escort the Indian cargo ships from there. So if India leans too far towards one side, like on either on Iran side or on Saudi Arabia and UAE and all that side, then BRICS credibility will collapse. And we all know that that US has been wanting to, I would say, destroy BRICS from the day one. That has been the policy. So the question now is that why the world wants India to mediate. And that's when actually the dilemma and everything that we are talking about, this is when actually this whole thing becomes legitimate. Okay, this is when everything becomes legitimate. And why is that? Because no other country on earth holds live, trusted operational relationships with all 4 parties. India is not just the best mediator available, it is the only one at this point. Just 2 days ago, Finland's prime minister was saying that the only country that is influential enough to do this is India. Then Russians were just saying few days ago, Russian foreign ministry actually made this statement that only India can pull this off. So what can they do? So it's a very tricky situation, quite frankly, and then not just this. See, yes, there are certain leverages. India has Iran, Chabahar and all that, but does Iran really care about Chabahar at this point? I don't think so. Then Hexagon partner with Israel. If Israel may care about it, in India may ask Israel to do, hey, don't do it. Then Israel will do it, but may not do it in a certain way. But sooner or later, Israel will again do the same thing. And then again, let's say for Israel, it matters because Israel is a very small country. So if Israel gets, say, something major happens down the line, then Israel will simply blame India that, hey, we stopped because of you, and now this happened to us. Who is responsible for this? Right? So it's a tricky situation. It's not just as easy as saying that, let's not do it. All right, guys, let's grow up. Let's not fight. Right? So no, it's not that easy. And for US also, same thing. US wants to destroy BRICS. Why would the US listen to India in the first place? Yeah, they may pretend all that. Yeah, let's not. But let's not do this. Let's not do that. Okay, we will see. But no. unless US has to save the face, unless US is seriously looking for a face saving exit, they're not going to listen. You got to understand this. So maybe Arab countries, Saudi Arabia and UAE will probably listen, but Saudi Arabia, no, Saudi Arabia will listen too. Let's just say that, okay? But Israel may also listen, but is US going to listen? I doubt that. Until until they are looking for some sort of face saving exit. Okay, so that's where the whole entire situation is tricky. Now, who else can interfere actually, or I would say intervene, not interfere, or mediate more? So then Turkey is there. Turkey is can Turkey mediate? They can try it, but I think that Israel is already not very happy with Turkey, so forget Turkey. Qatar, Israel had bombed Qatar, so that's not gonna happen. China is not saying anything. Okay, China cannot mediate because for US, this whole thing is about China. Okay, Russians cannot mediate because Russians are involved in another war, so they don't have any face or room to talk, quite frankly. And UN cannot mediate because UN's the architecture to mediate in something like this is through UNSC. And UNSC, we all know how UNSC pans out. P5, basically they just veto here and there, and then after that they have cup of tea or something, and then they get out. That's what P5 does. They're a bunch of jokers. Okay, so that's not gonna happen either. So anybody who can do serious talk is India. But that serious talk, the need for the serious talk actually creates the dilemma. That how do you actually balance between the two? And India recognizes this, like I said, like I showed you in the video earlier, right? So what are the risks? Let's talk about the risks here, okay? So the real risks for BRICS, if this thing escalates further, and anything else, let's say talks fail, war escalates, what happens, right? So risk is not that India will leave the bloc, or it is India staying and the bloc being permanently reshaped into something like India, Brazil, South Africa. You can no longer remain inside, and this, it's not, none of that is going to happen. Okay, what will happen is this, that the very thing that BRICS is fighting for, or has been fighting for all these years, okay, all that is gonna go out of the window. Okay, so now let's look at this thing a little bit more. Okay, so what will fracture destroy? Fracture happens, then $33 billion NDB loans frozen. Okay, then $100 billion CRA backstop gone. Then M-Bridge, that M-Bridge is something that has been worked on for cross-border payment between the BRICS countries. Okay, and then UNSC, India's P5 bid loses backing if this fracture is gone, right? Then, so what India can do a couple of things here. That fracture path A will be that India signs the condemnation. Then India loses Iran. UAE and Saudi Arabia, BRICS are partner countries, immediately suspend participation. And India loses Gulf state allies inside the bloc. Or fracture path B will be that force vote India refuses, right? That they do a voting, and Russia, China will force a formal condemnation vote. India vetoes. China leaks it publicly. India blocked BRICS solidarity with bond member Iran. India wins the vote 6-2 but loses the narrative, right? And Iran will also remember that forever. And that is also a very big problem. But at the end of the day, doesn't matter what path India chooses, what happens? It will be the BRICS that will lose, right? So that's the real risk here. So what can India do in this whole entire situation? What are options? What are India's option here? See, India's options are number one option. Okay, there are three options that I could think of. Okay, and three options will be, option number one will be like neutral stabilizer, that stay neutral, don't take sides, talk about what, talk about that issue, basically blind bilateral statement calling for peace and dialogue. Okay, abstain on all BRICS votes, attend summits but table no language, right? Then talk about keeping the Strait of Hormuz open, keeping the trade flowing, and this and that, right? So what do? You preserve all the gain relationships and everything, and it costs nothing. You don't mediate. You don't become mediator. You don't interfere. You don't do anything. You just leave things be. Only talk about the trade and the supply chain. Then you become, option two is that you become quite mediator. Use bilateral channels, right? Modi Putin, Modi Netanyahu, Modi Iranian Foreign Minister Arachi, right? Facilitate indirect US-Iran communication via India's back channels, right? Support a ceasefire process without publicly naming India as the host. So you can do that too. But once again, all this is possible only when both parties want face-saving exit. For US, let's say face-saving exit will be that, hey, we came here, we wanted to destroy Iranian missile and ballistic missile and nuclear infrastructure and this and that. We did that, yay, goal achieved. US face-saving done. President Trump's face-saving done. Why? Because nobody dared to attack Iran. Now he did it, so he can go and thump his chest and talk about it. Iranians will get the face saving by saying that, hey, you tried to destroy us. Haha, nothing happened. We are still here. Right? So Iran gets its own face saving. Israelis are like, oh, our threat is postponed. If this happens again, we will do it again. Make no mistakes. The Israelis, as usual, make their own usual threats and bombing and this and that happens. And everybody saves the fair. Good night, bye bye, tata, and game over. All right, that's the quiet mediator part. Then comes the system manager part. The option three. This is even more tricky. The tricky is that use BRICS to manage the war's consequences, not resolve the war. Why? If you don't resolve the war, this is why it gets risky, even more so. Why? Because if you don't resolve the war, then you cannot manage the war consequences for too long. Those consequences will also change as the war will progress. So what do? You do table communique language like humanitarian access, restrained dialogue. Like that's what they're doing. They're sending all these humanitarian effort, humanitarian aid, Russians, Chinese, and Indians. They're doing that. And then propose NDB emergency humanitarian fund for war affected populations. All that is being done too. Offer to host BRICS sponsored ceasefire dialogue and all that. That hasn't been done yet. Why? Because like the Ministry of External Affairs, the spokesperson, he said, it's tricky to bridge that gap somehow because both, lots of BRICS members are involved here. So these are three possible options. And before all this, the other possible option that I can think of is that India can use US and Israel to their advantage and say that, hey, okay, we will get involved with you under the condition that you stop the bombing and make sure that nothing happens after that. So you move all your ships from there, then we will enter. And how is that gonna pan out? Because that is also a risky situation. Yes, it will stop the bombing. It may stop, not will, but it may stop the bombing and all that. And it may save lots of lives here. Okay, lots of lives, lots of damage and all that. It can save, but if down the line things again happen and something escalates, then there will be even bigger problem. right? So that is the thing. So question is that can India hold BRICS together? Right? So the answer is very simple, that yes, India can hold the BRICS together. This, yes, members are divided, and the world is watching if BRICS can act as serious geopolitical platform. And so India's task will be very historic too, because this is a tough job right now. It's a very big and very bad spot. But you have to understand this, that when all is said and done, okay, when all is said and done, I can assure you that I think BRICS will be the way to go. If India resolves this issue, not resolve in the sense that stop the war or whatnot, but if India can hold the BRICS together in this tough time, okay, by not, helping somebody win the war or not picking a side and all that, then India can actually prove that multipolar world is the way to go. Okay, and India can also prove that multipolar diplomacy actually can survive a multipolar crisis. And if India succeeds in this tough time, then BRICS becomes stronger. But if it fails, then the entire project of a post-Western global order that could actually fracture before it even fully begins. So guys, let's see, only we can speculate. So far BRICS is holding up, and what happens from here on, yeah, we will see, only time will tell. But this is it for this video. Please do like and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys in another video. Thank you.